Welcome to Remainders, where we bring the video store to you. My name is Patrick. With me is the multi-talented Darren Burrell. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Great to hear your voice. It's been about 2 weeks, and I'm sorry we took last week off, but I'm ready to go. I can't wait to talk about this insanely uh, depressing at times movie by Paul Schrader.
So I think that's where we're going to get into it because, man, this is not a depressing movie at all, even though it has heavy subject matter. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
heavy is the word, right? Heavy is definitely the word.
Man, it's sounding short actually. But yes, we are watching the 2017 Paul Schrader film First Reformed with Ethan Hawke. To give you a little synopsis, Hawke plays Reverend Toller, who tries to help an environmental activist and his pregnant wife. The man questions whether it's moral to bring a child into a dying world and wants his wife to have an abortion. Hawke claims despair is part of life. And this triggers two events that really sets up this movie. First, the man commits suicide, leaving Amanda Seyfried pregnant and alone. So they're already pretty dark, pretty early. And second, it leaves Hawke and his hope and faith deeply damaged. And the rest of the film is kind of like a spiral into despair as his character learns more about the climate catastrophes that the world is facing and whether or not the future, as a reverend, deserves any hope. So basically, the way I see this movie is an environmental awakening turned into spiritual doom. So yes, this sounds pretty heavy, but this is definitely the character study that I really love to get into. So I'm excited. You had not seen this movie before?
I had never seen this movie before, and as per usual, I always love that you bring things to my door that I don't think I would have explored had you not. And it's funny because I was just reading a lot about Paul Schrader in that Tarantino book. So it was nice to be able to kind of like pivot to what he's been up to lately. As you start to get into this film, you can't help but think about Taxi Driver, right? You're like, oh shit, like this is like maybe it's Travis Bickle, but in a different way. You know what I mean? It's like it's not the same, but it is the same, if that makes sense.
Oh, I mean, totally. So I kind of see this. It's by no means any trilogy, but just in my mind, I have a lot of connections between Taxi Driver, Bringing Out the Dead, which we watched before, which is a Paul Schrader script, and this one, First Reformed. I mean, it really does get into they all basically journal first-person narratives of these characters slowly going insane. And it's all, obviously, Paul Schrader is the through line. He wrote the scripts of the first two and then wrote the script for First Reformed and directed it. And those three movies are really kind of connected, which is, again, we've talked about the other two quite a bit on this podcast, so that's why I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. You do get to get into the character's mind in all of these films based on some voiceover and things like that. So a lot of what you're experiencing as an audience member, not necessarily everybody in the film is understanding about the character as it plays out, and only us, we only get to go into his mind, which is an interesting way to tell a story. I've heard it in the past been talked about that, like, if you use voice, I don't even know where this came from, but if you use voiceover, it's kind of like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like a cop out.
That was Brian Cox in Adaptation.
That's right, Brian. Yeah, it's like a cop out.
God help me if you are using voiceover. Just go fuck off.
That's exactly where it's coming from. And that's nice little homage to Brian Cox, because I've been watching Succession, which is beautiful.
Man. Okay, we don't have to get into it too much. I've been banking up season 4 and to binge that, and that would be ending soon. So I'm looking forward for a full weekend of that one to catch up.
Yeah, just stay offline if you don't want anything spoiled. That's all I'll tell you right now.
I got one spoiler. I already saw one spoiler. We're not going to talk about it, but that part I did see. So I don't know how far up you.
Oh, I'm right there.
You're right in there. Okay, so we'll
go ahead. Yeah. Sorry,
and we'll talk about that another time. Yes. Yeah, so Scorsese is like a perfect example of why that's not actually true at all. It's like, you just watch Goodfellas. It's like voiceover is absolutely like a huge reason why like something like that or Casino works so well. So,
and we love that. Yeah,
I think it is like it's kind of one of those things like it works. When it works, it really works, but then when it doesn't, it's the worst thing in the world. So it's like you really have to only use it if you like are confident with it that it's going to add.
Right, because even the middle ground, it sucks. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just doesn't. It falls flat.
And it's also like kind of in film history, it's been like a way to redo movies. I know Blade Runner was an example of that, where they did not like the original cut, so they like added over voice over, and that movie has like multiple cuts. But one of the second cuts to make it more palatable to like general audiences was to just add a voiceover, so people kind of are able to follow along a little bit more. So it's also kind of like a producer's tool to like make something more
tie the room together a bit.
Right, yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah. So I love a good journal movie. Like I'm all about like when a character is just nailing away at his journal the whole time, and you kind of you get a sense. And the best ones, you get a sense of like whether or not they're even being honest to themselves, which is what I love about it. So
he says that in the beginning, and that's the nice thing about it, is that the audience hears right away, like, I'm going to be as honest as I can be in this journal, because like what, it's a human, it's almost like he says, I forget exactly the right words that he says, but he says something about the fact that like, what's the point of doing this if you're going to lie to yourself? You have to put down all the truths into this journal. And then he's going to burn the book at the end of the year that he writes it, right? So we're getting this like really, really streamlined insight from this guy's brain into what he's thinking and what he's feeling in this sort of small town environment that he's looking after, because it's this old church, and it's looked at more as like a tourist location now, because it used to be it would house slaves during the Civil War, and it's really, really old. So a lot of people like to go there and like see it just as like an attraction rather than an actual place to go and worship. And you see a lot of scenes where he's talking to basically nobody in the in the congregation.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of the day-to-day life that he's already experiencing. So this is going to be like a spoiler-heavy podcast. I think it's fair to kind of just put that up front, because there's a lot of stuff in here that would love to dig into deep. And if we're not doing spoilers, I'm going to be as fruitful. So he lost his son in war. And so he's only alluded to it a couple times. Firstly, with that first conversation with Michael, he's the man, Amanda Seyfried, who he has that pretty deep conversation with early on. Like that really sets the tone for this movie in terms of like this man coming to him like this is what's going on with the world with climate change. And this is why I believe it's like everything's fucked. And Hawke is just kind of put in that position of what am I supposed to say to a person who's kind of already given up hope, with like almost like scientific irrefutable facts, like showing like this is a reason to give up hope. And that's what I love about like how it just sets up for this character. It's like this man was already like facing his own battles, his own internal struggles, losing his son, and because he's in this position of not necessarily authority, but just solace. He's supposed to be the source of hope for so many people, and he can't even find it himself.
Right. Yeah. Was it the Iraq War that they talk about he lost his son in? I think.
That sounds. Yeah. That timing would have worked out, because it was like his son was like a young man at the time. So.
Yeah, and this is 2017, and I believe that the movie plays out in the exact same year that it was shot. And we're talking about the priest character here. His name is Ernst Toller. Is that right? Ernst Toller?
Reverend Toller. And
he's played by, and it like probably one of my favorite performances of Ethan Hawke's. And I'm surprised more and more as I see films of his how much I do like him. I wasn't really like, you don't just like, don't really think of him as like your favorite actor, but the more and more I see him in things, I realize he's got a great range, and he also knows how to hold things back, and he knows how to react really well. There's some great moments with that, especially when he's talking to people and his expressions on his face. And I think this was a really good, maybe a really good role to challenge him in his later career here. And I really like the fact that he was chosen for that. Some really truly like off-putting but like interesting scenes between him and Amanda Seyfried too. Like those connection scenes And then, kind of taking them away to this like journey, and then it turns from like beautiful forest stuff to like tires in a yard. These characters are brought together because of something tragic that happened to her husband, but it's not like Ethan Hawke's character didn't already sympathize or empathize with people who are with this cause of saving the planet. Maybe not, he wasn't set to be as extreme as they were in the beginning, but as the movie goes on, he starts to realize the more and more corruption in the world that's hard to ignore, even within his own church, right? And so as he starts to realize that there's people that don't care within his church that own basically his livelihood, he starts to go off the rails a little bit, and his drinking increases, and he's getting to the point where whatever's wrong with him has to be checked out. He has to go and figure it out. And that adds to the hopelessness. Oh, well, maybe I'm dying of cancer now. Like, they never really tell you that he is, but he's got this in his head. And so that's just, it's all spiraling as the movie, and they do a nice job of like really moving the beat along that way. Because in the beginning, you see this like, this priest who you like. And he is a likable character, even through the end when he's doing some crazy things that we'll talk about. But you do sympathize with him. Actually, you sympathize with all the characters, sort of like you can be in that position in life where there's people that won't listen to you about things that you believe matter and that are actually very detrimental to like our livelihood as a human race, but nobody's listening. Nobody will hear you. And so I think that adds to the helplessness, the hopelessness. And that's ultimately probably why Amanda Seyfried's husband kills himself. He just feels like there's nobody that can help me here. It's all fucked and there's no way out. I don't even want to bring a baby into this world, and that's how this all starts, because he doesn't want to bring a baby into the world.
Hope or despair. I mean, that's like the through line of this entire movie. So yeah, a lot there. Love all those points. Maybe kind of looking backwards. I mean, I saw an interview with Schrader talking about it, and how that question that you just said, like whether or not it's moral to bring a child into a world where that may or may not be, the most habitable place in the future, whether or not that's moral. That's not a question that anybody was asking before, like 20, 25 years ago. And so that's completely new to like our generation as we mature, you and me less so than other people, but as we get older and looking to have children, it's whether or not that's going to be a moral choice for everybody. And so, and I love that that's why there's going to be kind of a movie that's going to be, I think, certainly revisited multiple times in the coming decades. And it's like, so this is like what we said, 2017. It's already kind of has like a different tone to it, like revisiting now, only several years later, than it did in the mid to late 2000s. We just went through the COVID pandemic, so that just already adds that much to it. So, and
like if you think about the previous president, and all of the things that was cut out, for funding and different things for natural, parks and different things, and the way that the planet operates and the way that we're trying to help the planet, a lot of those things were rolled back. So this takes place during that time. I don't know. Schrader must have written this before all that, but still, that was kind of timely for this film to come out during that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the existential dread of the 2010s. It's kind of how I kind of saw it, is in trying to capture that. So, maybe going back to the performances, yeah. So we saw Cedric the Entertainer, who's actually great. He's like the head reverend of the church, and he's kind of the connection to like the big corporations that are doing all the polluting that Ethan Hawke is kind of discovering that his church is like bankrolled by. And so that really just kind of pushes him to keep on kind of having these actions that he realizes are like, he doesn't think they're extreme at all, but like they are not making the corporations happy. So he basically plays like a anti corporation protest song from Neil Young, at the man's funeral, at Amanda Seyfried's Hope. And it turns out that this was just like a total slap in the face of the corporation bankrolling the First Reformed Church. And so this just adds into like the bureaucratic and the corporate aggravations that he's experiencing.
That adds to a nice scene, if you don't mind me cutting in.
Yeah, please.
Where they're, I think that's where Ethan Hawke finally realizes, everyone here has a different agenda than I do. And he really asked, like, for the first time, I believe in that scene, will God forgive us? And a lot of times it's like, okay, well, like all these decisions are being made, but like, when is God part of like the decision-making process, that's like a discussion within itself, the separation of church and state and all those kind of things. And like such a weird, tangled, twisted web always comes from religion, and it's always supposed to be such a positive thing, but it adds more problems a lot of times in, what we do here on this planet.
That's definitely an understatement. Definitely get behind that for sure. And so and the spiraling just kind of continues. I mean, so he discovers a suicide vest in Michael's garage, and then he's his husband. And this was a homemade suicide vest that was possibly going to be used by the environmental activists. And this just really just puts him in a whole nother world that he probably, I'm assuming, never would have thought he would be in. But he's like viewing online videos of what that means to commit a suicide bombing. And the closer he gets to the corporate interests with his bank, or with his church, I'm sorry. So there's the 250th anniversary coming up, and that begins his contemplation of whether or not violence is a solution. And as he kind of strays farther away from hope and into despair, it becomes a more viable option for him.
And I think at this point, it's good to mention that there's something going on with the connection that he feels towards Amanda Seyfried. Maybe that's how he felt, I don't know, with his wife, or something. Maybe he feels like he needed to like right some wrong that happened there, connecting with his son. But so there's something between him and her where he kind of wants to save her, or he wants to look out for her. And that's a good point to talk about now. The reason that he has a laptop, and I didn't even really realize this watching it, because I was kind of like, why does his laptop have like a polar bear that's like, gaunt and, on a seemingly hopeless journey. I'm like, why does the Reverend have that? But then I realized as I was reading up on this that he had taken that laptop from, it's Michael, right? The guy who committed suicide. He took it from Michael so that Amanda wouldn't have to go through all of the craziness of like the cops finding the laptop and finding out that he was kind of a conspiracy theorist or whatever they were gonna make up about him. So he's learning all of these things, especially about it's called Balk, I think, is the name of the company that owns the First Reformed Church, his church, and that they're part of this whole, environmentalist espionage issues that are going on. And he finds out all of that through this laptop that he had secured from Amanda Seyfried's husband.
So this is while his drinking is increasing. So he's dipping. What is it? He uses whiskey as like
it's like bread or something. I couldn't see it.
So it's dipping in the bread. So this definitely has references to this movie Diary of a Country Priest by Bresson. Largely a lot of connections. Journaling during a crisis of faith. In that movie, the priest is the only thing he can eat because of his stomach condition is bread dipped in wine. So it's like a total connection to there. It's just happened to be this movie I saw in this film class about 5 or 6 years ago. Otherwise, we'll never come across it. It was like right before the movie came out. So it was a total revelation when I saw that happen at the time. And then he gets a diagnosis, as you mentioned earlier. And this is just kind of where he is getting to, it's not really a tipping point because he kind of keeps his composure the entire time. There's no, until the very end, which we'll definitely get to. I absolutely fucking love it. There is no, he shows no signs of real stress. Like he's calm, cool, and collected whenever he's kind of like contemplating with violence, either to himself or to others. And that's where the journal comes in. Is that
well, and this is where he's no De Niro, you know. I mean, this is where the difference between those characters are, because I believe, and I haven't seen Taxi Driver in a while, you know, he's not drinking. I don't think Travis Bickle drinks at all. For the most part, he was pretty straight-laced, if I can remember. But he did show signs of like being pretty unhinged. I don't see that at all from Ethan Hawke's character, even though, like I said, they're very similar in the way that they're kind of like unraveling as the story goes on for their own specific reasons. But the other thing about the alcoholism and stuff like that, like he kind of gets into some conversations with Cedric the Entertainer about it, like, hey, you know, you got to cool out on that. Like, and seemingly everybody knows there's something wrong, and they know about, you know, that he's sick, but at the same time, like, yeah, he's not showing any of that. And also, like, if he's an alcoholic, like, even the audience members don't really think that. You know, they see him drinking alone and all that stuff, but it doesn't look like he's drinking a lot. And you don't see him out of control. He wakes up the next morning, he's doing his job, doesn't look hungover. There's no signs of him, like, in his own vomit, you know, like there's no scenes like that in this film. So it's kind of an interesting way. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but yeah. I did read that like maybe Schrader is leaving a lot up to the interpretation here in this film, and maybe that's one of them. Like, is he really like an alcoholic, or is that just like society saying like, oh, you know, a priest can't have any wine, can't do anything, you know, can't have a real life, can't be normal. You got to be as like focused as you can to help people. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think the majority of the movie is definitely left up to the audience. And that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. It's like, this is the kind of character study that I live for, because there are no explanations or answers, really. It's really a glimpse into this person's life and the struggles that they're going through as they face up to the struggles of humanity. And that's what ties me and draws me to these types of character studies, because it really is the experience of the character that we're watching without any type of, you know, there's nothing that Schrader is trying to like say in terms of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is what people should do, this is what they shouldn't do at all. It's entirely a glimpse into Ethan Hawke's crisis of faith, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing in the way of you like kind of making up your own mind, I guess is the point.
Yeah. Who else are we talking about? Amanda Seyfried, she's so they go on that magic mystery tour, kind of almost drug-like trip where they're connecting with each other, where they have this. So she talks about how she used to lay on her husband as a form of connection. And so she asked Ethan Hawke to do this, and so and she's lying on top of him, and they kind of go through this surreal drug trip scene. And this, I think, it's pretty important because it really sets up whether or not the rest of the film is in reality or in his head. This really kind of ties back to the end scene that we'll get to because it's entirely up for interpretation.
It's a turning point for sure for the character Ethan Hawke is playing. I think, like, you know, everybody who's watching that scene in the beginning, there was like, these guys are gonna fuck, you know, like there's a lot of like electricity going on between them.
Yeah.
And instead of that, you get this kind of, like you said, Big Lebowski drug trip, you know, scene that's a little fantastical, but you're right. It's like kind of perfect and it's beautiful. It's like they're elevating. It's very spiritual, you know, but it's also like showcasing a lot of the beauty that is like nature and the environment that we live in, and how, you know, that's part of us and how we, you know, live. And then it turns pretty quickly to tires in a yard, plastic bottles. And as an audience member, it's very hard to watch because you're like, Jesus, is that what's really happening? Like, even if you didn't know, you know, now you know. And the deforestation stuff, and it's really it's really a shocking scene because it starts out so beautifully, you know, and then it turns. And I think that's another way of like that sexual energy like really just combined them and their cause, and where he was going to go from there.
So that brings up a good point I wanted to talk about. So technology, so the 2010s is certainly when social media came to be, at least in a prominent way for most people. And it kind of goes into what the world we live in now. It's like in the past, like you could kind of choose what you wanted to know. It's like it was kind of a limit to what you knew about the world. And now with technology and social media and just the access of information, it's like you can know exactly what you want at any time. And that kind of leads into like you can know your own truth at any time. So that kind of feeds into the hope or despair. It's like whatever you are at that space, it's like the information you can seek out information that'll validate either way.
I don't know if you remember the scene in 6 Feet Under where George.
I'm sure I do.
where George. I just finished the series, by the way.
Hell yeah!
The fucking ending, best ending in television history. Anyway, George is like gets there, right? Remember in and this is 2004 probably when that was. I think that was a 2004 season, and he's going on the internet and it's talking about the water and he's just discovering the internet at that time, and that all of these terrible things in the world are like coming to fruition. And yeah, there's nobody fact checking that. There's no, it's just stuff that he's finding out, but it drives him mad, right? I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen 6 Feet Under, George goes into a mental institution and it really fucks up Ruth.
There's a great scene when a young youth pastor, somebody with the church comes to his door asking him to join God. And his reaction is just like calm, cool, and collected. It's like, you really think that's going to make any change? The thing we need to do is address the water crisis. I'm going to give you some information. Why don't you come?
Yeah, and then he comes in. He has him come in so he can show him all about the water.
He does his own conversion to the religious guy for his environmental activist.
But you're right about that technology, right? I mean, that's kind of the point that I'm making here is that, it's scary.
It's those scenes that you were saying, like when they're on that kind of drug trip, it looks beautiful, and then it kind of devolves into those scenes of like what the world's looking like, and that kind of is a good point. It's like those. I mean, it's not any conspiracy there. It's like corporate media. It's like it's owned by nothing but billionaires, and so like what's shown is only going to be like what is kind of in their interest, and so that's why you really don't see images like that in the news, even though that's extremely newsworthy information. You would think. And so that's just nothing it's something that most people who are watching regular news don't really see ever. And so that kind of makes sense why it is a shocking thing for so many people. Like, oh shit, that is what the world is going on, or what the world looks like at the moment. And I'm just here in my room, and what can I do about it anyway?
Wow, we could just spend years talking about the powder keg that was the 2020 pandemic. All of the different things you can't unsee. I remember sitting there with all of the things happening in the world and thinking, like, as soon as someone stops reporting on all of this stuff, like people will forget about it, and it won't be the buzz, thing of the day anymore. And here we are 3 years after it, and everybody's moved on. Right. Like it's almost crazy because, like, you shouldn't forget that kind of stuff, and you shouldn't forget like what's happening in the world, and you should be political to a point, and can stand up for things that you believe in. But at the same time, like, you can't get obsessed with it, and you can't carry on with it. But then you can't also forget it. It's why I think art is so important. I talk about it a lot. Commenting on the times that you're living in. So that future generations can realize like what it was like, and hopefully that you don't repeat a bad part of history again, even though it happens all the time. Well put.
I'm trying to see the hope in that aspect rather than just the despair.
Yeah,
which is fine. It's the best.
Well, I think the hope is that, like, here we are 3 years later, and I feel like all of the hardship that was going on, it's gotten better. Right? And I think that's a positive thing to come out of it. You know, it has gotten better. Maybe that acted in a way for people to get outside more. I would hope so, you know, instead of reading so much stuff online and realizing most of it's fodder anyway. I would like to hope that's a positive thing that came out of it, because, you know, even like what we're doing right now with Zoom, I mean, this is a great thing to have, but I know that you and I both value, like, we would rather do this in person a million times if we didn't have the space between us. And I think a lot more people believe that now too. When before they were like, no, this, I don't want to see any human beings anymore, and like, this is what I would rather it be. That quickly faded. You know, I think human beings need to connect.
Well, I was going to say, this podcast is a pandemic podcast. We started this near the beginning of it out of a need to connect. And so that's definitely one good thing, at least for me, that came out of it. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad we kept it going. I guess that's the point, is that the good things, you just keep going, right? And so here we are talking about Paul Schrader and his mad genius.
Oh, so good. So maybe I want to talk about Hawke a little bit more, but we also getting close to the end, which I'm excited to talk about the last 10 minutes of this movie. What do you feel like discussing right now? You want to talk about that ending?
Yeah, I mean, why don't you? It sounds like you have a lot to say about it. Why don't you lead the charge, and I'll chime in on my thoughts as we go along.
Yeah, so he essentially is ready to take out the high-enders at the 250th anniversary at his own church.
Can you explain high-enders? That's the thing, is that I was kind of like not sure who was in the audience. I know that he has trepidations about Amanda Seyfried showing up, but yeah, can you just speak a little bit about that?
He's perfectly willing to kill innocent people. There's no doubt about that. But all the corporate interests that we talked about from Bulk, I think you said was the name of the corporate funding organization, they're all going to be at the anniversary. And so in his mind, taking a suicide bomb vest to that and taking out the church is where he's basically got to in his despair-addled mind.
And yeah, so, for anyone listening leading up to this, he has definitely kind of gotten to the point where he's on his vest and everything. He's sewn in, in memory of some of the people that have been environmentalist sort of angels, that have gone and given their life for the cause. He's sewn them on the vest, and that's in a very Travis Bickle moment.
Yeah.
He's in front of the mirror. He's looking at himself and everything. But this all kind of culminates because he's been to the doctor now, and the doctor is like, cancer isn't the cancer it used to be, but yeah, you probably have it. We have to do some more tests. And then, at the same time, the drinking hasn't stopped. He's only been doing more of it, and he's fallen more and more into despair, realizing that these, as you mentioned, the high-end people, the Bulk guy who basically runs the organization, there's no beating them. They're too big. So he's gotten to this point where he's about to enter into the church to do the 250-year celebration. That all along, we don't really know that he's going to get to this point where he's going to put on the suicide vest and bomb them, except for the fact that he does tell Amanda Seyfried he does not want her there. He's very, very, very blatant on how he says it to her. You do not go there. And she's kind of like thrown off by this. Like, so there's that point that he says. And then there's one other thing that happens. Oh, he's talking to Cedric the Entertainer, and he's basically saying like, oh, that's fine if Bulk comes and to the 250 thing and introduces this. It's fine. As long as I get this in my congregation, I want to be there. So you do have an idea as soon as you find out that he's going to put on his vest, that he's thought about it for a while, that he was going to like use this celebration as a time to kill him.
Yeah, and I mean, throughout the whole time of him discovering the vest, like he's definitely intrigued by it. But him being intrigued by it is pretty far from actually murdering innocent people.
Yeah, I guess you don't think that he's really going to get to that threshold. Yeah. And
so we're in that final scene. He's starting to dress up. He puts on the vest. He's just incredibly composed and put together about everything. He's doing it very formal, and that's when he sees that Amanda Seyfried, Mary, she shows up. She defies him. She shows up. And this is the first time in the whole movie where he's set off, and he gives a type of performance that I've never seen Ethan Hawke do. I mean,
he's like touching the vest and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, he's writhing in absolute pain, and he's also giving like these deep groans of like anguished pain that I've never seen him do. It's just so fucking great. And so this is where he's being set off, and he's ready to either kill himself or follow through with the bombing, which it seems like he's not willing to do because of Mary being there. And then he wraps himself in barbed wire, the Jesus figure almost. He's cutting himself with the barbed wire, and he's putting the vest back on, or like the Reverend out back on, and he's ready to drink toilet cleaner. And this is, go ahead.
Did you say when he put on the barbed wire is very biblical?
Well, I mean, it certainly feels quite biblical.
I mean, I took it as like he's wearing the crown of thorns, like he's maybe this is martyrdom, right?
Right.
I'm Jesus here.
Yeah.
And there's also that scene, like you said, he's very put together when he's putting these things on and he's kind of going about the vest. Very military in one scene, and that's a good point you said earlier that he is a former military person. So that's again why it felt very Travis Bickle,
Yeah, that's right. And so everybody's waiting for him at the church, ready for him to give the congregation speech. Cedric the Entertainer, he's walking, he's trying to find him, can't get in the building. Entire building's locked. And this is important because I think that kind of is one of the many notes that this is a dream for everything that follows. Mary shows up, just says his name, and he drops the toilet bowl cleaner that he's about to drink, and they just walk straight up to each other, start kissing, and for the first time in the whole movie, the camera is basically moving. It's one of those great shots. We've seen a bunch of them actually lately, like in Body Double and a couple other movies.
Yeah,
where two figures are kissing, and the camera is just moving around them the entire time. And
it's like the chaos around them is swirling, but they're finally connected in something beautiful.
And it is the first time the camera is really even moving at all, because it's all been very still, very serene kind of shots throughout the entire movie, very focused on specific items. And it's the first time you kind of feel disoriented by the camera. And so I personally take it as the entire ending really is a dream, and that he did die in one of multiple ways. Either he drank the toilet cleaner, or he bled to death, or he did follow through with the bombing. And it really doesn't matter what actually happened. All it kind of really comes out to is just kind of like what those final moments of his life felt like, which, you can make the argument him making out with Amanda Seyfried is basically heaven. And so then it cuts to black for the end of the movie.
I agree with you. It's hard to believe that she would walk in with barbed wire wrapped all around him,
right? And
he would just start making out with her.
Like I said, Cedric couldn't get in, but she just showed up.
Right, he's there. Yeah.
So it's just these little things that I think
she calls him by his first name too,
right?
Which never has before.
Yeah, and so it's just little things. Again, it really doesn't matter, but it's just little things that kind of give you the note that this is in a surreal world, and it's most likely either the final moments of his life, or like the first couple moments after he first dies. And so. And the music is playing the hymn, the gospel hymn is playing the entire time for this final scene, which is why I love the direction so much. And it just gives this really perfect summation of that hope or despair that the entire movie has been running through the whole time. Yeah,
this film is definitely, like we said, a lot is up for interpretation.
Yeah,
no one would be wrong if they had a different opinion as us, what happened at the end of the movie, because again, I think that's the point. It's not like one of those satisfying endings. You know, you're not. I don't think any way you look at it, it's like a very positive outlook at the end. You know, you don't feel great at the end of this film. It's kind of like a lot that's going on is still going on in the news right now. But you know, the environmentalists are putting dye in the water in, I think was in Italy, and then throwing, you know, tomato can soup on the Mona Lisa or whatever it was. I mean, there's a lot of people that are out there doing extreme things to get people to pay attention and stop fucking up our earth. You know, this is ongoing, and I don't feel like religion paired with that kind of immediate need for help for our world is going to leave you with anything but questions at the end of the movie.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from for sure. Like, I mean, the idea wise, yeah, there's probably not much to have hope for, but as a film, like in the direction, like
Yes.
that's entirely why this is a movie that I've watched multiple times and fucking love it because of how ambiguous it is, like I was saying, and like how open for interpretation, like you were saying, and just how the vacillation between hope and despair, and it's just a fucking amazing way that Schrader was able to kind of weave all these things together. And I mean, I feel I haven't really said enough, but it really is Hawke's performance that makes this such a classic film for me. He, as you were mentioning, this definitely is my favorite performance of his. One of my favorite films that he's ever done. Performance-wise, Training Day would be up there as well in the before movies, but he is so fucking good in this movie, and it's a large reason why I love this movie so much is because of his performance. And like I said, those last 10 minutes of being so calm, cool, collected throughout the whole movie and rational, and for him to basically release everything that's been going on deep inside in those last 10 minutes, it's fucking beautiful to watch.
Paul Schrader was recently at the Arrow Theater doing like a question and answer. I feel like he was in a lot of people's discussions these days about film, especially out here. I pay a lot more attention to, like, you know, there's a lot more of those like Alamo Drafthouse type places where they really focus on filmmaking and, you know, films you should know. Like, of course, New Beverly and everything we know is amazing, and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot more. There's like Secret Movie Club is another one I follow, and they're constantly putting up films that are, you know, really important. And of course, everybody's playing them in like the aspect ratio, the original film negatives, and they from time to time we'll have like filmmakers there to talk about the films. And Schrader was at the Arrow the other day, and I don't know why I don't go to these more often. Maybe it's just, you know, I'm busy, but I would have really liked to see that.
Yeah, I'm definitely familiar with Secret Movie Club. They have a lot of great showings. Yeah, any final thoughts about the movie? It sounds like you definitely enjoyed it in terms of a Paul Schrader film, and also a Hawke film. But like I said, it really does kind of act as a trilogy in my mind with this Taxi Driver and Bringing Out the Dead.
There was a Paul Schrader film that I tried watching the other day, and it was too much, but it was within the Criterion. I'm trying to look it up right now. They had put together a list of like erotic, like, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's like a lot of like erotic 90s like things happening. You must remember this, you know, is
I saw she's doing that.
Yeah, she's always ahead of things. Yeah. And anyway, she was, I think it was like erotic 80s, and now she's doing erotic 90s, and I haven't really listened to them, I have to admit. I want to, but it seems like she's been so good about like influencing like what is happening in cinema, which is kind of an amazing thing that I've been noticing, because like Criterion then will put together like, you know, the erotic films you should watch from the 90s or whatever. So anyway, there's a film that Paul Schrader did called The Comfort of Strangers. Have you ever seen?
No. Did he direct or just write?
let's see.
He directed it, 1990.
With Christopher Walken. And so I didn't finish it. I got about 15 minutes in and it was like late night and I was like, I gotta really take this in, so I didn't end up watching the rest of it. But Schrader's been doing films for a long time and I don't know, like this film was one of my favorites, I would say, just to end our conversation that I've seen of his. And it's nice to see him direct it, you know.
I caught up with a Schrader that I had never seen. I think it was the first movie he ever directed, 1978, Blue Collar, with Harvey Keitel and Richard Pryor, which I was not familiar with this movie, but once I heard it existed, with the two of them in a Paul Schrader movie, I was right on it. They're workers in a local union, and they discover corruption because they decide to steal from the union, but they inadvertently discover corruption within the union, so they try to blackmail them. And it was pretty fucking great. I mean, it was like I said, a young Harvey Keitel with Richard Pryor. It's fucking amazing. It was just, you could definitely see, it looks like it was the first movie he directed based off his script. So it was only a couple years after Taxi Driver, and right before Raging Bull. I mean, I do have to catch up with a decent amount of his movies because he has some ups and downs, certainly as a director. There's quite a few movies he's made that people are not fans of. He did one of the attempts to reboot The Exorcist with Dominion in 2005, which had multiple cuts.
I believe I saw that.
Yeah. Autofocus is a fucking weird fucking movie. I remember watching that one at Suncoast. That one's way out there with Greg Kinnear and William Dafoe. For the actor Bob Crane in his Sex Edition. Way out there. He's got some ups and downs and some unusual stuff.
I mean, Tarantino kind of rips him in Cinema Speculation at times, and I think he has to, like, at the end of the chapter, he's like, I actually did discuss with Paul Schrader, and I let him know I was not a fan of this film. I forget the film he was discussing, and he said, "Don't worry, neither am I."
That sounds familiar. Yeah, which one was that?
I forget the name of the film, but it was like on that chapter. I think that he was going into Taxi Driver, probably.
I did hear that Tarantino reached out to Schrader and asked him if he can redo the ending of Rolling Thunder, which Schrader wrote. Rolling Thunder, didn't direct it, which is one of Tarantino's favorite movies. But he wanted to redo the ending for his new movie. It's going to be like a small part, like in the film critic for his final film. So that's all the details I know about that. But so obviously we're going to be seeing some revisionist 70s classics in Tarantino's final film. So.
Wow, I'm sure it's got to be a love story to those films that he loved growing up. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. I mean, my final thoughts. Like, I love this movie. Again, Schrader's great. It's largely because of Ethan Hawke's performance. It's definitely travesty that he wasn't nominated for Best Actor this year, especially when you look at who was nominated over him. And it's definitely one that I think people should check out quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'll say my last thought. Seeing Cedric the Entertainer reminded me of a time in like probably 2018. I was at like a rooftop party in Chicago, and Cedric the Entertainer was there. We were both pretty drunk, and I got to talking with him. And yeah, it was a really cool moment. Like, just kind of like bullshitting, and we're just, nothing like Hollywood about it. It was just kind of like two guys drunk at a party. And I was like, like Chicago legend, man, Bernie Mac, And he's like, oh, he kind of changed because Bernie had passed away. And I was like, let's do a shot for Bernie Mac, man, So I got to do a shot with Cedric the Entertainer to Bernie Mac. It was fucking awesome.
Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea about that. That's great.
Yeah.
You said it was 2018. He was riding high off of First Reform that just came out. So
yeah,
probably celebrating that release or something. So
Yeah, he's an interesting casting choice for this. I mean, I always love those like kind of comedian things where you
Right.
don't expect them to be in these like sort of serious roles.
Well, I mean, he plays like a reverend, which again, like the type of theatrical reverend that you see like in a lot of churches. It takes a big personality, and a stand-up comedian is oftentimes perfect for that.
Totally.
I love that. Awesome. First Reformed, glad you loved it. And yeah, let's get into some other stuff.
Everybody check out First Reformed, Paul Schrader. Mwah, beautiful.
Love it. What have you been watching this week, actually? I
So
got a couple viewings that I want to talk about. I'm excited to hear about yours.
Okay, yeah. I recently watched a film. There's a Jennifer Jason Leigh setup, and I'll just kind of ramble off what I've watched because there's a lot since the last time I talked to you. Jennifer Jason Leigh, like retrospective on Criterion, and I watched Single White Female for the first time. Had never seen it before, but of course it was like kind of like the buzziest movie back in when it came out, and I was always so interested in seeing it. And yeah, it was that was like a fun ride to check it out. And then
a movie I watched way too young.
You've seen it, yeah?
Oh, I saw that on HBO when I was a little kid, and yeah, I remember. I mean, it's not a crazy movie, but it was.
I mean, there's a lot of nudity.
There's a good amount of nudity. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, those are some of the first boobs I saw. So as a kid, I was lucky enough to have HBO. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's a crazy movie. That does go into the perfect like the '90s erotica, and it also goes into like the '90s trope. I forget who was kind of covering a lot of these movies. There's so many movies.
Like Basic 90s. Instinct, and it's like like kind of like obsession and like death and like murder mixed with like sexuality.
But it was all like in middle class white kind of setups. It was always like what's that Michael Keaton one, Pacific Heights, where he's like the crazy tenant who's going to start killing everybody, or the Michael Douglas movie with Glenn Close. It's always like this kind of suburban horror that was pretty prominent when you look at all like the thrillers that were coming out in the early '90s.
I would say that I think it's more like, especially in Single White Female, it's like more upscale people like mixed with like maybe lower. So in that movie, at least, Jennifer Jason Leigh is coming in as like sort of like a bit of a transient. She didn't really have much place to live or whatever, but then she moves in because of like the infidelity happened between what's your name again?
Fonda?
Yeah.
Bridget
Fonda, yeah. And so she's like made it. She's successful, and she, has her own company and everything like that. So it's kind of like that was like a mix. And I even think in the Michael Douglas one, he's like a lawyer or something like that. Yeah. What was that film? With Glenn Close, he's like the rabbit. That's like in that film, right?
Is that one? Not Disclosure, but yeah, it's all that middle to upper class kind of white paranoia of like who's going to come into my comfy life and start trying to threaten it. You know what I mean? Kind of just general.
Yeah, there's a vibe to those for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. So, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, that's fine. Yeah, so I watched that recently, and then my girlfriend had never seen Hateful Eight, so we watched Hateful Eight. She had never seen Death Proof, and we talked about it the other day, so we watched Death Proof.
Oh yeah,
both films she loved. I love Death Proof, I think, a little bit more than most people.
It's way up there for me.
It's way up there for me too, and I just recall like last time we talked, you had mentioned that that's not one of Tarantino's, like he doesn't sell it as like his favorite. Yeah. But yeah, I love it. When watching it again, it is like a long payoff for that car scene at the end, but it's not like anything's boring. You love these girls, like the ride that you're on with them. So
it's a showcase for his dialogue.
Yes, very much. And I would say that another thing that maybe is like a little bit of a downfall, that it's like it's very like Tarantino wank fest. I mean, he's talking about foot massages. Yeah, he's talking about giving foot massages. He's a booyah. Like every movie that Tarantino has like awesome shit in, they like threw that into these, grindhouse.
I remember seeing that like when it first came out. So it was like the double feature with Planet Terror.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it makes sense that he would just kind of, I mean, it's as closest to a horror movie that he's ever made. And so it kind of makes sense that would be kind of like a hodgepodge for like everything that just like gets him off. He's going to throw into this grindhouse type movie in a double feature. So, yeah.
Dude, Planet Terror, by the way, Rico, 6 Feet Under.
I was just thinking about Rico. I haven't seen him in anything in forever.
He was in Hollywoodland, which was great. I believe. No, I'm sorry. He was in Lady in the Water.
Never saw that one.
Wait, Lady in the Water or Hollywoodland? He was in Hollywoodland and he was like working out his arm.
Hollywoodland is the one with Affleck, right?
Yeah.
So those are Lady in the Water is the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yes, I know. He might be in both films. Okay, I have to look it up.
I remember like in Hollywoodland. Yeah, I haven't seen that since it came out. That was a good one.
There's a film or a series based on a real life murder that happened in the 80s called Love and Death. That's on HBO right now, and it's fucking excellent. And there was a series a year before called Candy. It's the same story, and that was with Jessica Biel. I enjoyed that. I'm enjoying Love and Death even more. They really like HBO, man. I don't know. You know, it's kind of like the best shit. Like every time they put something together, it's like the fucking best, you know?
Well, we're not to get into it, but like apparently HBO is no more. Today's like the first day.
Max.
It's just Max. I can't understand. I honestly don't get it. It's like, why would you? So I've had HBO my entire life, since I was a little kid. I don't understand what's the appeal of it not being that anymore. I'm confused.
In my opinion, I have a feeling that maybe HBO will live somewhere as like, you know, the parent company still, but like Max is like the streaming platform version. Everybody has these like, you know, Paramount Plus, and that shit's all confusing, right? You go on fucking Apple and you're like, okay, I paid for Apple. And it's like, but I still got to pay $5.99 for the movie. It's like, you know, on their Plus feature or some shit. It's all confusing. Maybe HBO is trying to remedy that by saying like, okay, well, this is like our streaming platform, and like HBO will live as like HBO somewhere else. But I don't know. I don't really know that, but I'm just saying like maybe they're trying to find a way to like make it a little bit easier for us all to understand that like HBO programming is now on Max, and you know, the old HBO that you loved. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like 6 Feet Under on Max, right? Or is it?
That's what it is. HBO Max doesn't exist anymore. If I don't have cable, I haven't had cable in 15 years. So if I'm going to watch everything that HBO has, I have to get Max.
But that's what I'm saying. So does cable still have HBO? Is HBO still cable? Like,
you're asking the wrong person. I haven't seen.
I mean, dude, I haven't had TV in fucking years. I don't have any TV here.
Right. I mean, I guess if you have like the Comcast, whatever cable package, I'm assuming it would still be called HBO. But if you're like, anybody under 80, you probably don't have that. Yeah. And so if you're going to watch the stuff that HBO has, like we've mentioned it tons of times, it's one of the best streaming sites. It's just Max. So that's why I guess I'm more just confused on like a marketing level. It's like, I don't understand why this brand that's been around for 40 years, you're just gonna be like, oh no, this is not a thing.
Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, listen, since we last talked, there's been too much going on. I mean, AI, the writer's strike. I mean, everybody's striking. There's probably gonna be no programming soon. It's fucking crazy out here, just so you know. Like, I don't know what it's like in Chicago, but there's everybody picketing on every street corner about AI, and their fucking their livelihoods are on the line. Like I've never seen it before. So
I've been thinking about AI quite a bit, just because of, I've been thinking about it for a long time, but like what it's going to do for like stories, and like it has the potential to really push people away from generic material and into more deeply personal material, because AI has already been able to write like a better script than for like CSI than I could write. But it certainly can't write a better script that is deeply personal to people right now. So I'm just thinking generic, it's like, or high level, like I think it could almost have the ability of having people like kind of reject more generic stories and seek out more deeply weird and unusual and personal stories, because that's,
I mean, if Hollywood will make those and take a chance on that shit anymore, like that's the other thing that's been happening is that, well, we know people love Star Wars and that's going to make money, so we're going to make more Star Wars shit. We've talked about this before too. I think like A24 made the film we talked about today, and like they take the chance on like some shit that is new and unique, but you don't really see that too often right now. There's not too much brand new original things happening because I don't know if it was a result of the pandemic or recession or whatever, but all of the original stuff is kind of being pushed aside to make room for things that they know are going to be surefire moneymakers. I mean, like the Flash has that throwback now to the old Batman that everybody loved. Like everyone's going to see that to see that.
I'll admit I will see it for Michael Keaton and Batman.
Yeah, so everybody. Fuck, I don't even watch those movies, but I'll go see it for Michael Keaton. That movie was the biggest fucking movie in 1992. So. It's crazy, but it's weird. I experienced the AI thing for the first time through like a stock photo thing that I use. So a lot of times, I have in the past uploaded like a lot of the photos that I've taken, to sites that'll use it for like stock photography. Like, if I took a great picture in Chicago and whatever, something came to me that said like, we're moving forward. You have to re-sign the lease, releases for your photos, because we're going to lend your photos to our AI machine for it to better understand the world and how to create different things. So let's say you put in something like, I want to get me a picture of Chicago with a sunset that's purple and the bean in front of it. And so AI will then like search through all of the things that it's learned from this specific stock photo site, and it'll, look for in its whatever database. I don't even know how this stuff works, but it'll, let's say I took a photo that has like a purple skyline or something like that, and it will take that and then use it to create this brand new image that somebody looked for. And basically they were saying you have to give away your rights, knowing that for all of eternity, for the rest of time, the rights to your original photo are going to be used whenever this is used on this money-making machine for us.
Right.
I could say no, but that's the first time I've experienced it in my life where, like, as an artist, my original photo doesn't really matter anymore. Like, because now it's going to be used to make millions and millions and millions of other like original photos for people whenever they plug it into their computer.
I saw somebody point out, and it kind of clicked in my mind, that like the reason why like something as ubiquitous as ChatGPT is like free is that like it's in its beginning stages right now. And in the beginning stages, the reason why it's free is because all it's doing is taking all the information that people are just feeding. Just like
Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, right?
It's just sucking up information, and it's going to do that for a while. And then at some point, it's just going to basically have all the information it needs. And then who the fuck knows what happens there? But it's just the fact that like there's a reason why it's free right now is because everybody's giving it fucking information, like just using it. So, yeah. I
mean, nothing's free. They're eventually going to find a way to monetize this. So right. But yeah, it's smart. They're getting everybody's shit, and people are just clicking buttons like, yeah, you could take that. I don't care. As long as I get my 99 cents whenever it sells, my photo, I don't care, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's crazy. A lot happening. I don't know. We'll see where this goes next year when we're doing this podcast around this time, and see if the world's changed any. But I will say there's like things that AI do that, I like for instance, with my photography that, there's like an enhanced feature now within Photoshop that's AI generated that will like bring the resolution up with, you can't even tell there's like a difference in quality, and it'll like, I think it's called like super resolution, and it's helpful for me in my printmaking, right? So like when I take photos of my art, I like really set up the position with good lighting and everything like that, and my camera can only go to certain like, I mean, it's a great camera, but it can only go to so many megapixels or whatever. So if I wanted to make a really, really big print of the photo that I took, like the bigger it gets, the worse the resolution. Like Photoshop has figured out a way with AI to like make your photo super resolution. And that's another way that I've seen AI that I can use. Like that's helpful to me as an artist, So I kind of like is my age old story. I did a podcast where they asked me about AI, and I think like it still runs that like line of like, yeah, well, there's like a lot of challenges in art over the years, but like how you use it or how you react to it as an artist is kind of like equally as important, if not more important than bitching about it.
Speaking of your art, I saw your new painting with the airplane this morning. Fucking great. Loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, so let me tell you that I'm sorry, I'm talking about myself a ton. I want to hear about you and your picks and what you've been watching. The last thing I'll say is that I missed the last week because I was really, really, really working hard, kind of like losing it a little bit. So thanks for giving me a week before we talked about this. But that was because, and I don't have it behind me, but this is a quick story for anybody out there. About persevering a little bit. It's fucking hard being an artist, when you're trying to begin something, especially right now when like I'm kind of in like the second stage of my life, and what I'm trying to do is kind of crazy, ground up artist, but I work really hard at it, and I believe that I'm very good at it, and I believe that people enjoy it. And I know I enjoy it. So like, I'm not really worried so much about making a ton of money or anything, but I do want to like be out there in the world and get stuff onto walls so people can see my stuff. And then maybe eventually that will become a little more fruitful for me monetarily, in the future. And so like, I've been working at that. And like you said, I've been posting stuff online, and that's been great and everything. But there's a gallery around the corner called La Luz de Jesus. And so I've been really working really hard. I got rejected last year for the work that I had. And I told myself, I am going to resubmit next year. And I even emailed them back. They said, like we had a lot of submissions for this. It was a juried exhibition. And, we decided not to go with yours last year. And I kept the email and I said, I am going to fucking do it next year. Like, and I've thought about it for a whole year. I've thought about it for a whole year, and I've like looked at the stuff that they've posted, and I've gone to the gallery, and I've looked at the things that like people are doing, and it's done two things for me. One, it's humbled me and made me realize like where I was last year wasn't where I needed to be in some of these galleries. Like, yeah, everyone's different. And I'm not saying my art was bad last year. I'm just saying, I don't think I was really, I took some time to learn how to oil paint better this year. And cause I realized like a lot of their paintings that they were, in their galleries were like oil paintings. And so that's like helped me get better as an artist. And it gave me something to work towards as an artist. And last week, I was grinding on the last piece. They let you submit 3. And yesterday, I got the confirmation that I'm in the showing. And dude, thank you. I am so, so happy and proud of myself for working hard that I said, like, it would have been okay if I didn't. If I didn't make it, it would have been okay. And I would have still had some great pieces, and I would have still learned how to paint better, because of this process. But I will tell you, like, there's nothing better than getting that email that said, like, we're proud to accept you into our gallery show for 2023 in July. So I'm so pumped about that. And that's why I was going so crazy, and I didn't have the time on top of it being my girlfriend's birthday. So yeah. Anyway, that's my little story there about being a working artist here.
Hell yeah, man! Fucking proud of you. That's awesome. Congratulations on that. I mean, that was. I've known your work ethic for many years. Obviously, the way you were describing that right now is like just a perfect example of a lesson that everybody, including myself, can take in terms of like focusing on what you can control and what you can't control. It's like everything you just said there is just entirely focusing on like what you can control in that circumstance for the year coming up to the next submission, focusing on painting and focus on that, and kind of ignoring the decision about it, because that's out of your control. And so, and that's
Right.
all. And I mean, the thing about life is that the more you focus on what you can't control, the better the turnout for what you can't control usually is. So
100% why I shared that story, because you're right. Like once I submitted it, I talked a lot about it with my girlfriend and said like, now that it's out there in the world, I did what I had to do and that I told myself I would do, and I'm that much better for it. But yeah, ultimately, like the decision to get into that show isn't up to me. I put my best foot forward, and now it's up to somebody else. But that's okay. I'm on to something else that I enjoy doing. And I gotta tell you, like, man, I wake up every morning and I have like a real purpose that I love to do. Like I really hope people find that for themselves. I hope that for you, if that, whatever you're doing in your life, that you have something that you just feel like it's what you're supposed to be doing. If you believe in God, like it's what God put you here to do. And that, yeah, it's hard, but like it's satisfying, right? And by the way, one of the things they chose one of the pieces that I submitted, and I won't give away too much here because I'm gonna be able to post it soon, and there'll be a site where like you can buy it actually, which is amazing. Like this is my first big like museum, not museum, but my first big gallery that's accepted a piece, and like they're going to have it available online to buy before it even opens. So I'm like really excited. Somebody could like own this like really important piece to me, but there's a stoicism component of it, which I would have never known stoicism had you not sent me that book. So in a lot of ways, you're in that piece. So thanks for that.
Oh, love to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like that's certainly one of my multiple purposes in life is information seeking, and that's why I read so much. And that's kind of just what I do when I get up in the morning. It's like I'm always looking for specific aspects and different aspects of life that interest me. So that's what.
Yeah, for so long, you kind of wake up in the morning if you're doing something that's not right, and you dread the day. I don't want my life to ever be like that again. It doesn't like, and that's where like the money doesn't matter, because, the feeling I get about like, oh my God, like it's almost like too scattered brained. Like there's so many projects I want to get into. I'm having my coffee and I can barely even sit.
You froze.
Sit still because I'm so excited. Oh, it says your internet connection is unstable. Is that me?
You're freezing. I don't know if you can hear me right now. You're
can't.
You can't hear me?
I can.
You can. Okay. You're fine now, but yeah, you definitely froze there for a couple seconds.
Well, that's okay. I have to go through and cut out a few things, but anyway, all I was saying is that very happy doing what I'm doing, and it's really great to have a partner in you with the remainders that understands that. So sometimes half that shit is like, oh man, it's like, Pat gonna be upset that like I can't do remainders this week or whatever. But you're always like so cool about it. You're like, yeah, I get it.
Darren, we've been talking movies for what, like over 20 years now. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So
that's true.
I feel like we'll be watching movies, talking bullshit in movies, and finding life lessons in them for a long time to come. So.
And that being said, last thing I'm going to tell you before you get into your thing, and then I'm done talking. You're going to shut the fuck up because I know I've been talking a while, dude. William H. Macy.
That was fucking. I was pretty jealous that day. I was like,
dude,
I'm not seeing Macy. He's in a show set in Chicago, and I'm not seing Macy. And
yeah. He been in Chicago for like 7 years or whatever that show is. So, dude, let's check this out. I've been recently running again because my doctor had said, yeah, you're okay to run, and your back is doing stronger, so go ahead. And it's made all the difference. And that's another thing I'm going to preach to everybody about. Exercise is like so important for every aspect of your mind and body. But I've been doing that and just like loving it. Like there's like a sweet spot where there's nobody really out, and it's like around 10:30-ish here. So I'll go and I'll run around on the block. And I was on my cool down. And it was like you go out to Sunset from the neighborhood that I go to run in. And as I go down on Sunset on a street, nobody's out. And I turn to the left to get onto Sunset. staring at me this close is William H. fucking Macy. And he looks at me and I look at him and we're staring at each other in the eyes and I just go, and he's like, and kind of walks past. And I was like, I'm not going to be one of those guys who's like going to pull out my phone, take a picture, take a picture. But like, I was like, kind of like stunned. I'm like, holy shit, like out of nowhere. It's like seeing like fucking Sasquatch or something, because you're like, so like, what is he doing here? Like, there's no, cameras, there's no nothing. It's just William H. Macy on the street. And he's obviously looking for somewhere. He's like texting people on his phone. Cause then I turned around once I got a little while back and he was still on the street, kind of like, where am I, kind of like. So anyway, here in Los Feliz, Silver Lake area, William H. Macy sighting was really cool. Just like, then I started reeling back on all the shit. Jurassic Park 3, fucking.
I love that that's the first one you bring up.
Yeah, no, I know. Taya Leone, right? And then, obviously, like my degrees of separation now with Paul Thomas Anderson is 1, William H. Macy. So that was really cool. I enjoyed that sighting a lot.
I mean, if you really wanted to be an asshole, you just go up to him. Is that quiz kid Donnie Smith?
Yeah, totally. I mean, dude, I did that painting.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful one. Yeah, I love it.
And then that came back. I was like, I just fucking did I will this? Like, I did a picture of William H. Macy. I guess if I really could have been an asshole, I could have like brought up the scandal of the school scandal that he went through. But
what is that? I don't even know that. You watched you're my source for TMZ, so I don't know anything about the personal lives of actors.
Yeah, I know all the personal
information from you. So,
him and his wife got in trouble with that college admissions scandal. Like paying somebody to get you into college.
I know about that. The girl from like Full House was one of them, right?
Yeah, and his wife Felicity Huffman went to jail for it.
Holy shit! Really? I had no idea about that.
Yeah, for like I don't know. I think she kind of did less time because I think she's one of the only ones who admitted to it. I don't know this.
Wow.
I don't know this fully. But anyway, he didn't get in any trouble. It was his wife. Yeah.
That's such a crazy story because it's like, one, obviously that's like, I mean, it's just such a blatant, like, people think like it's hard work that it pays off in life, but not so much. But then the other half is like college is becoming more and more useless as we go on. So it's like that type of story, it becomes even funnier that like these people are going through these lengths to get their children to this useless degree.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say because, I don't have any kids, but I also know what it's like to fucking struggle, and work really hard at trying to make, a better life and to be in a better position where I don't have to like worry about the money that's coming in. So I kind of wonder like what life is like for somebody who finally does like get to make that, let's say William H. Macy, I don't know his story, but let's say like he somehow was, nothing and made no money and then became an actor, became super wealthy, and maybe in his mind he's like, none of my family is ever going to have to I don't want them to experience that fucking life ever. And maybe that's where it comes from. And in that case, like, who can blame them? You know what I mean? They worked hard and they just want to like fucking make sure that their kids don't experience pain or hardship. It's wrong, but I think it's like maybe people are like, like I'm just trying to save them. Ultimately, they don't save them from anything, but you get it.
Yeah. Oh, no,
maybe the intention's right.
Yeah, who knows what's actually happened? I just find it funny. It's like as college becomes increasingly useless for a lot of people. The only thing that most people come out of college with is debt, and that's about it. So
I mean, but then you also like go to like some employer and like all they look at the resumes is like what fucking school somebody went to. I mean,
that's certainly less now than ever for that, for sure.
Do you think so? I haven't been in the workforce for going on 3 years here, so I don't know. That
was the best humble brag I've ever heard of.
Hey, I worked hard for that humble brag. Maybe I'm not making any money.
I know you did, but
I worked hard for that humble brag.
That was fucking great. Love it.
Yeah. All right. So, what movies have you been seeing? Dish.
Love it. Well, you mentioned Perseverance. One of the best movies I saw in the last couple of weeks was great experience. I want you to see the Michael J. Fox documentary still at the Gene Cisco. All right. It's beautiful. So we can talk about it. Such a great experience. I got to see it at the Gene Cisco. You and I have been there a couple times. Awesome theater here in Chicago. Man, loaded movie. And like I said, talk about perseverance, his entire life in the last like 20 years. So like I read his first couple memoirs that came out maybe 10, 15 years ago. Great writing, just a great survey of his life and what he's gone through. And then this movie is kind of the first time that I've ever really seen actual footage of where he's at now and how advanced his Parkinson's is. And I honestly didn't realize that he's living a life where he can't do anything by himself anymore.
Is it, maybe you know better, I think it's like, it's based on those memoirs, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely all his story. His memoirs are just like a survey of his career and life, and then what he's been going through with the diagnosis ever since. And so it's a summation of all his writing into it. And what did you think?
And to see it at the Cisco Center.
Yeah, it was gret. No, it was such a great time. I mean, like there are some very candid scenes of him and his trainer, him and his family, and it's just it is humbling to see him in such an advanced state of Parkinson's, and just the fact that he really physically depends on so many people. And there's multiple scenes showing him in the hospital because he just fell and broke different parts of his body.
Which we never hear about those, right? No, we don't hear about the breaks.
And I thought it was just a great overview of his career and life. I mean, some of those old pictures showing him when he was like a little kid, like just like 2 feet taller than the rest of his classmates.
And the recreations, by the way, were so well done.
So well done. I loved it.
Like in his hotel room with his pinky and stuff like that. I mean, they really did a nice job of like putting us in that room where he first discovered things, or what it was like for him as a kid, like you said.
And he's still so charismatic when he's on screen doing the interviews. He's like such a fucking joy to like listen to and hear him talk about what his life is.
I mean, and nobody has to ingrain themselves in like that unless they go through it. A lot of people don't care to learn about it. And this is like, I think, a very good documentary. Like I mentioned, I saw it over the weekend after you showed me that you saw that. I think I sent you that trailer maybe, and I was like, or maybe you did, you sent it to me. Either way, I know we were both excited to see it, but I'm more jealous of you seeing it at the Cisco Center. Of course, I saw it on Apple Plus. My girlfriend has a trial or something, so I was able to watch it. And I didn't know much about Parkinson's other than what you hear about, or knowing Muhammad Ali had it, and then obviously everybody just assumes a lot of things. But here he's talking a lot about the drugs and like how important those are, and controlling it. And like the fact to even be still for a minute, to have to take, a pill or whatever, and him being like, I'm really tired. And yes, like that, a very, very humbling scene where he fought, the woman says something to him at the beginning. It's like in New York or something. And then he falls on the ground.
Yeah.
It kind of left me speechless,
Right. He put his the drug that he takes multiple times a day to keep it kind of keep him focused. Is he described it as waiting for a bus? Like he takes the pill, he's just like when the effects aren't working, like he's basically almost like trapped in his body, and he can't really do too much or think kind of straight. And so he describes it as like, I took this pill. It feels like I'm waiting for the bus. In 5-10 minutes, the bus arrives, and then he's back on it. And that's what a lot of interviews is like, because he's so sharp when he's answering the questions with the interview and just talking about everything that he's gone through.
Talks a lot about not letting people treat him differently, especially as family. God, that's got to be so hard to figure out, like how do we react to dad? How do we help him, as a family? You really try to figure out like what that would be like, if you had to go through something like that. I know a lot of people are up against a lot in this lifetime, but it's good to see how you can kind of keep things as positive as possible and still surround yourself with a lot of love, even though you're going through something very traumatic and life altering. No, just with my own ailments that I've had, I've kind of, you don't see it in the when you're in the shit, but you can look back on things, even if you're still going through them, as moments that shaped what the future is, you know? And I don't think I've ever told you this before, but like when I was going through my issues, whatever it was 2 years ago, that Stoicism book helped me a lot to stay present in the moment. And I honestly don't think I could have gotten through it without that. Like, you know, those are like, that's such a big part of life, you know, just to try to stay present in the moment that you're in, you know, because you can't really predict what the future is going to be, and the past is already over. So right here is all we got. And there's so much beauty in that moment. I think that's another reason why running is so nice, or exercise. It's because, like, or art, you know, whenever you're doing any of those things, you're very present in the moment. And it's those are easy ways to achieve that, you know, state of mind.
Hell yeah. I mean, thank you. No notes. I couldn't put it more perfectly myself. So I love that you recognize that, because that's half the struggle, is being able to recognize that, being lost in thought is kind of the struggle of humanity, that we have these monkey brains in this modern society that don't necessarily worry about anything other than seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And when you apply that to a life with all the bullshit and conflicts that it goes through, it being able to appreciate the good stuff is pretty commendable task. So.
And then also on the other side of things, Michael J. Fox, it's a good reminder of what a fucking badass he is, and how much we love his films, and the great art that he's created in his time. And I'm not just talking about Back to the Future, even like the Family Ties stuff. I remember watching that when I was a kid, and
Teen Wolf.
And the one movie, The Thin Red Line, that I've never seen, right? Is that the one with him, or is that not? No,
not Thin Red Line. I know it's the one with Sean Penn.
Is that a De Palma movie? Casualties of War.
Casualties of War. Is that De Palma? Yes, it is De Palma, because we mentioned it when we were talking De Palma recently. I have not seen Casualties.
Neither have I, and I know that's like a serious. It's more of a serious performance of his.
It's supposed to be great. It actually screened it at the Cisco within the last year or two. That's definitely one that I need to check out, because it's it's so easy to just rewatch Back to the Future or Teen Wolf. Because he's so fucking good in those movies.
And we talked about this too, but favorite J. Fox for me is The Frighteners. And
is that your favorite? I love that.
It is. It's my favorite Michael J. Fox film. I love The Frighteners so much. Did you end up going to see that?
I missed that. It was the midnight showing, and I did not get to it.
Gotcha.
I'm always ambitious with the midnight showings these days, but I only sometimes make it that late. So
yeah, I hear you. Well, cool. Great. So should we do our, I'm sorry, did you want to talk about anything else?
No, I mean, I mentioned Blue Collar that I saw. Oh, I did go to a showing at the Music Box. They played Labyrinth with a full shadow cast, which was fucking great.
What's shadow cast?
Shadowcast were like to perform the movie on like the stage in front of the screen. They just
get the fuck out of here.
Rocky Horror does it, like all the great like midnight screenings for Rocky Horror. They'll have like a shadow cast. I've seen it for like The Room a couple times. It's not really, it's not like a commonly done thing. It's only awesome places like the Music Box, or I'm not sure if the New Beverly does it, but it's kind of a rare thing. But yeah, so they screen the movie, and the actors. For every character on screen is like performing the movie in front of the screen. It's fucking great. I mean, Labyrinth was one that we watched growing up all the time.
Pretty theatrical too, of course.
Oh, it's so great. And the music's great. David Bowie, absolutely fantastic in it.
Fucking Ridley Scott too, man.
Ridley Scott? No. It's Jim Henson.
Dark Crystal.
That's Jim Henson too, I'm pretty sure.
I think
Ridley Scott did Legend. Maybe that's what you're thinking about.
That's it.
Oh man, great Tim Curry performance in that one as the devil.
Totally.
Maybe Henson did the puppetry for that one, but yeah, no, that's Labyrinth is all the brainchild of Jim Henson. Which man, it's a fucking movie that so many younger people should watch, because of just like how tactile everything is in the fucking, it's like everything is a fucking puppet. It's like the sets, all the characters. It's just gotta be like, I mean, like we were like raised watching that shit, but like for people who have, I don't know, maybe like really kind of only grew up in the era of CGI, it's like to see something like Labyrinth like blow their fucking minds, be like, look at how much everything on screen, almost everything on screen is like tangible and being acted out. It's right there. Plus David Bowie, so it's like kind of fucking great.
Starring David Bowie and his package.
Oh my god, that thing! Yeah, that got like hoops and hollers when that showed up from the audience.
I bet. I mean, it's kind of become a thing of legend itself. All right, let's talk music.
Music. What?
The Cure didn't come around to town yet for you, did it?
No, the Cure is in your town all week. I think they're just starting the Hollywood Bowl. I should have just came over to you because I'm going to be traveling around the Midwest for like a week, seeing them at a couple of different places. I should have just flown out to your place and just watched them 3 nights in a row.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, you would have had places to stay for sure. We would have done some pretty crazy stuff around here. But then again, maybe a trip out here is better when you don't have an agenda. So seeing them around the Midwest will probably be a fun little drive. You're going to drive everywhere, right?
So I'm flying to St. Paul. It was just schedule-wise, it was easier. I'll do that and then come back, watch them here in Chicago, and then probably drive to Detroit.
Where are they playing in Chicago?
United Center.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. They've never played the United Center here before in Chicago, at least not anywhere that I've seen them. They've always been at other venues here. Yeah, I mean, I'm fucking excited. So, like, this is the first tour in 7 years. I mean, I've seen them 6 or 7 times. But one thing that really dawned on me is like this is like one of my favorite bands who are currently playing to the peak of their talents. I mean, like I said, it's been a couple of years since their last shows, but like their last tour, I mean, they sound absolutely perfect. And so like this is like it's a rare chance for me to like see like an artist that I've loved for like decades still playing so well, because like I don't know, like I never got to see like Johnny Cash or I saw Lou Reed, but he was like I had to wheel him on the stage basically. I never got to see Warren Zevon. I mean, I've seen like Bob Dylan a bunch of times, but he's okay live. So it's just like really seeing one of my favorite artists of all time sound this good. It's just I'm not going to have that chance very often again anymore. So I mean, unless I find a new favorite band tomorrow, and then I'll be able to watch them for the next 20 years. But hopefully, I'll hold out for that. So
I can relate to what you're saying. I saw Chuck Berry play on stage. An ambulance had to come and pick him up. He tuned.
That was the one. That's right. That was the one he fell off the stage.
Congress in 2011. He didn't fall off the stage unless that was the story.
It was Congress. That's right. I remember. I didn't know you were at that show.
Were you at that show?
No. But I knew that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. He fucking tuned his guitar for like literally an hour. And I mean, his whole thing used to be that he would take like musicians from the area and they would just come and learn his songs, but like he would just yell out whatever songs he wanted to do, and then they would just kind of like have to like cobble it together. So it was already just like a little like weak or whatever. The best thing at the end of it is like he came out from the ambulance and he's like, my doctors had told me it was okay to come out and do the walk, so I'm going to do the walk for it. And then he duck walked off the fucking stage. Same thing happened when I saw Jerry Lee Lewis, rest in peace, by the way. He fucking played like 4 songs lightning fast. They were actually pretty amazing. And at the end, he gets up and goes like this. It takes him like 4 tries, and he finally kicks over his fucking piano chair, and then he walks off the stage. And it was, these are the stories I got to tell about these legends, So like maybe it's best you didn't see some people that
right
couldn't perform it, the best way. And the Cure being at the top of their game sounds fantastic for you since you're just a big fan,
Oh yeah, I mean and so I mean Smith is. I don't even know. It's maybe early 60s, He's not that old or anything, but it's so he's still certainly they're all physically fine on stage and everything by far, but like sonically, it's just how they sound really every time I've seen them since the first time I saw them it was like 2005, I think. They're just he's because a little bit different. He really hasn't put out too much new music. I mean, their last album was 2008, and before that was 2004. And before that was 2000. So they really he's only put out like 3 albums in the last 23 years, all of them before 2008. I think he finally started recording, and they do have a new album that they do have some new songs that I've seen that they've been performing for the first time ever. And I've been following all the track listing. There's a couple songs that they've played for the first time since like 1987. I saw it's like 6 Different Ways, which is a great song off of Head on the Door. They just haven't performed that at all since 1987. So I'm excited for that. And like I just said, like sonically, it's like you can look at recent videos of them or anything, like even at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's like they just sound so well. And that's kind of from what I can tell, that's where Smith has like kept his head in the last 20 years. Not necessarily recording new music, but just focusing on the strength of his performing.
Yeah, that's an interesting place to be. He knows people are going to come to the show. They're pretty legendary at this point. So like, let's give them a good time.
And I mean, the thing is like the Cure, I honestly do think they will only increase in importance over time. They've already been kind of one of the most important bands in alternative for many decades now, but I think seeing their lasting influence coupled with the fact that their music ages so fucking well. It's like I was listening to Pornography, which is their 1982 album the other day. I mean, you could honestly go to like Logan Square or Wicker Park this weekend, and like half the bands playing are still trying to sound like Pornography.
Yeah.
And that album came out over 40 years ago now. It's like it just sounds that fresh. It's almost like, I mean, the best age album of all time is Velvet Underground and Nico. It's like you listen to that album, it's from like 67. Like it still sounds that fresh, and that's it's like it's one thing to make amazing music, but it's a whole another thing that is out of your control to make music that still sounds good like 30, 40, 50 years later, and not just good, but also like influential. Like
I mean, some of the best shit is like that's been going around lately is people being like, write something, that old Kurt Vonnegut thing, that he wrote to the classroom before he died, like write something, doesn't matter what it is. And the whole purpose of it is to like tear it up and throw it away, Or then there's people being like, go ahead and like, write something or that you're a piece of music, record it for yourself, and then immediately throw it away. Because once you do that and you realize that there's no care in the world about people liking it or people, wanting to make money off of it or whatever, you're going to like make something authentically good and authentically true. So maybe there's something to that,
Yeah. I mean, even if you could control it, it becomes something you can't control because it becomes a piece of art, the relationship to whoever's experiencing it. It becomes like this whole nother thing that's like, you've set it out into the world. It's like, it doesn't matter what you want it to be, it becomes something else. Right. The relationship with the listener or the reader or the viewer or whatever. So, so much good stuff. They played for 3 hours the other night. I saw that. So the show length is definitely making a mockery of Morrissey, unfortunately. How long was the show? Sorry, that you went to? Not to put you through that.
I think he played 5 or 6 songs. I think or maybe one more, but it was fucking cold. I think that's why he left. I don't know. I don't know.
What is I haven't heard it. What he had a new album out recently, yeah? Is this the tour for one?
Morrissey?
Yeah.
I mean, he's dude. This is constantly he put out he was supposed to put out a bunch of records with Capitol. He had signed a deal here with Capitol LA, And then like there was a song that Miley Cyrus sang on with him, I guess, and like then she backed off and said, "I want all of my like vocals stripped off of that."
I don't know any of this. I just thought
Yeah.
he had a new record out. I guess.
And no. And then the next thing after that was like Capitol and him are having problems, and then he rips them on his website. Like most Morrissey fans know, like to get everything straight from the source, like you check the Morrissey website every day to see like what he's going to write. Like when Andy Rourke from the Smiths died a couple days ago, and I was like, okay, I need to know what Morrissey's got to say about this, you know. And of course, like he writes something on there about that. So yeah, it's a little weird. I don't know. He's got records. I've heard he's got at least one, if not multiple records completely finished, and he's constantly like, until somebody like ponies up and does this and puts it out on my terms, the public will never hear it, kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like, I mean, he looks like he had a single out last year.
Yeah, that was when he was playing, and I saw him actually perform that.
Okay, nice.
He released that, I think, like in spite of Capitol Records last year, because that's supposed to be on the new record.
There's a 2020 album, I'm Not a Dog in a Chain.
I almost wore that shirt today. I gotta admit, I don't really love that record, but I love the shirt that I got.
But that's new material, though, right?
No, that one was like a series of covers, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to listen to some of these new ones.
But to be fair, I've seen. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
California Sun in 2019.
I'm sorry. California Sun is the one that is the covers record.
Okay.
I'm Not a Dog in a Chain is the originals, but it's like I said, it's not one of my favorites.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, these are still only a couple years old. So it's relatively new for an artist that's been around for so long. So.
Yeah, 2017's record that he put out, Axe the Monarchy, is very good. I really like that record.
Oh, yeah. Love it. And then I also have the Halloween, which is on our list. Halloween and Hammerfall. I got that show coming up this week. So
God damn.
for that. Yeah.
So what's your pick of the week for music?
Okay, so I'm on in my adult life, on my third wave of Frank Zappa appreciation. It's taken me 3 kind of pushes since I first heard my first record when I was like 19 or 20. Your experience with Zappa? I mean, we talked. The text.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're. The text you gave me almost sounded like I know Zappa, but I don't want to listen to him.
That's the problem with technology. It was just literally that I know nothing about him. So
you just haven't listened to him.
Movies, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's certainly understandable. It's like he is more of a composer than anything, but his influence on rock and roll is just like even more than I understood. So Zappa, there's a documentary that came out in 2020. It's directed by Alex Winter. He played Bill from Bill and Ted and Lost Boys. Great documentary, and it just really shows an overview of his life and influence on music. And I mean, he was a huge influence on both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. I mean, like all their more like kind of drug tripped out phases, they both explicitly were like, we're trying to sound like the Mother's Invention and Zappa and what they were doing at the time in the late 60s. And so he does have a lot of like, he's resisted like commercial fame. He resisted his entire life. So he made a lot of music that was explicitly not anything that you would really hear on the radio, because it sounded like it was like from the movie. It's like no traditional choruses. It's just stuff that wasn't really that marketable. And so that's why he was such a prominent figure amongst music, but like, never was like a top selling artist at all. So, and again, it is kind of like long form progressive compositions. And so that's why it's taken me like multiple pushes to kind of really get into him. But like this third wave in the last couple of years since that documentary, I've kind of gone through his catalog again. And I mean, the talent is fucking there. I mean, if anything, just as a fucking guitar player and compositionist, like the genius is like so apparent. And I think his music is just going to like continue to live on. So I definitely recommend checking out that documentary, especially if you've never heard about him. or know too much about him because it just gives so much background, and it really covers his 80s where he got really engaged in freedom of artistic expression. Because like, it was a time when like politicians were trying to like censor art left and right, and then just like what they could do, what they could say, what was
There's a
immoral.
Ramones song. The only knowledge I have of Zappa is in a Ramones song called "Censor Shit," and
Nice.
Joey Ramone.
That sounds like a Zappa title, actually.
Well, Joey Ramone sings the line, "Ask Ozzy, Zappa, or me. We'll show you what it's like to be free." And he's talking about Tipper Gore in it. He's like, Tipper, come on. This is just a smoke screen for the real problem. Ask Ozzy, Zappa, or me. We'll show you what it's like to be free. Anyway, I know what you're talking about, just specifically through the Ramones via Zappa.
So, I mean, freedom of artistic expression is like the thing I hold higher than anything else. It's like, it's by far just like what is most important to me for the world I want to live in personally. And so his commitment to that was pretty deep. And so he followed that his entire life. He passed away in the mid-90s, cancer, but he put out, over 100 albums, some of those live, but like he was constantly working his entire life. Some more approachable than others. Joe's Garage was an album, his first album I ever heard. And Hot Rats is another one. And the song I'm picking today is called Willie the Pimp from Frank Zappa on Hot Rats. Is from 1969. So this is one of his earlier solo albums after Mother's Invention. It's a 9-minute song, long form, kind of progressive rock, a lot of jam aspects to it. If you like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, I think Zappa would be one that I think a lot of people, if you're listening to King Gizzard, you're probably familiar with Zappa, but like for anybody listening, there's definitely a good connection there with the long form, fucking awesome progressive rock style that they do. So Willie the Pimp, great song, great album, and I'd love to. I'll send you a little list, collection of a good intro to Zappa. Check it out. So.
I'm interested in like having my first Zappa experience via your song pick here, so I'll have to listen to it on the.
I mean, it's taken, like I said, it's taken me years to like fully like appreciate like most of his work.
Because most great artists are that way. It takes a while to get into him.
He is. I mean, it's not that like. The Ramones, personally, you're one of my favorite like rock and roll bands of all time. But like the structure of the song, it's almost like on a different level. Just in terms of like how the Ramones perfected like the 2.5, 3-minute song, whereas Frank Zappa was creating like 10 to 15-minute compositions that require just like a whole different type of listening style. So,
wow. Okay. Maybe we'll get into that documentary too. Speaking of Alex Winter, I'm going to see Lost Boys.
Oh, hell yeah.
Cinespia opened up its cemetery screenings for June and July. And then also they're doing a couple of different parks, and they're doing one in Griffith Park. So my girlfriend and I are going to walk to that. It's a picnic style screening of Lost Boys. And I saw Alex Winter commented on that, so I'm hoping he shows up.
Nice.
That's, I think, this weekend already. And then we're going to see Pee-wee's Big Adventure at the cemetery, Hollywood Forever, with fireworks, 4th of July weekend, and I'm so fucking pumped about that. My pick, it's completely different than yours.
That's the beauty of it.
And you're not going to believe this, that it's coming out of my mouth. But I've really loved this song, and I found out a lot about it as like I've been listening to it. First saw it, my girlfriend had sent me, this is like my favorite performance of the year. And I was like, oh, what is this? And it's just fucking Jonas Brothers. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, man, like, what the fuck? But she's the one who introduced me to Orville Peck. She sent me the Orville Peck song last year, and I was like, love this fucking guy, you know? So I listen, it's a song called Walls, but I listened to it first on Saturday Night Live. And you could see them performing it. It's fucking awesome, man. I would say to anybody listening to this now, go listen to the song second, but go watch the performance on Saturday Night Live first if you hadn't seen it. Walls by the Jonas Brothers, and I guess it's with John Bellion. Do you know anything about John Bellion?
It's not ringing a bell.
He is like a singer, songwriter, kind of influenced by like Death Cab stuff. Like one of the first guys that was like influenced by a lot of stuff that was like hip hop and like emo kind of together. I saw him at Bottom Lounge in 2014, I believe, right before he blew up. And it was a record that I loved of his. And it looks like he may have had like a hand in working with the Jonas Brothers on this new record. And so like, as I was talking with my girlfriend, she's like, yeah, like a lot of people are talking like John Bellion's all over this. And like, when you hear the song, if you know anything about John Bellion, it does sound a lot like a John Bellion song. Anyway, there's only like one thing I don't love about the song, and it's John Bellion's part. And it's kind of like this weird, like scatting that's happening in the, it's kind of fresh, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I'd rather do without it. It's like a production thing I'd rather that he wasn't doing, but the song still shines through all of that, and it's really a really, really good song. And I think the other thing my girlfriend and I were talking about is like, oh, I didn't know that like that main Joe could sing that way. Like he's really singing his ass off in the song. So that's my pick, Walls by the Jonas Brothers. I know, I'm laughing because it's crazy. Yeah,
I wasn't going to laugh at you, but you had to finish it up by laughing at yourself. So I don't know if I know the Jonas Brothers exist. That's about the extent of, and I know they had a good South Park episode, but I probably couldn't tell you one song.
I mean, same. Same. That's the thing is like my girlfriend sending me that. I was blown away by the performance more than anything, which made me like the song, which is kind of like the way it happened with me seeing the Ramones. I didn't like the songs until I saw them play it live, and I was like, oh, okay. You
had a phase where you didn't like the Ramones?
Dude, believe it or not, I got a ticket to the Ramones. My brother and his older friend were like, come see it. And I listened to the songs and I was like, this is fucking terrible. I remember thinking like, this is garbage. I was into Nirvana, you know, like it just didn't compute. I was into grunge and stuff back then. And then I saw the Ramones and the lights were off and everybody's going, hey ho, let's go. And you know, the lights were on all their amps, and then the lights come up and it's like, I'm like, what the fuck? It changed my life forever. But I had to see it live for me to really get it.
So you were basically Nate in 6 Feet Under when he's crying over Kurt, and then somebody plays Ramones, and he's like, "Oh, right, I got this new."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man, Nate Fisher, goddamn.
When the fuck are we gonna cover that? I mean, we gotta cover.
Talk about it every week. I don't know. We got to.
We gotta get into it. One of the greatest characters of all time, Nate. Talk about a spiritual leader. So.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I saw your the Gem Pop video, saw in half.
Yeah,
great performance, fantastic. You're creeping up the stage with charisma, and it was fantastic. Love it.
It was nice that she asked me to do that because I was like, yeah, why not, you know? But when I saw it come back, I was actually kind of like, wow, like, you know, like
you're in it a lot. I mean, you're featured in it like quite a bit. So it's great.
Yeah.
And the song's great. You guys did a fucking killer job. So.
Yeah, dude, she rules. She's such a great personality. He's like real fun, and I really enjoyed putting that together. Thanks for watching it.
I saw it was probably because of my algorithm in my YouTube, but when I first was seeing her videos, her cover of Rocky Erickson's song came up. I Think Up Demons, which is, I almost picked that song as my Rocky pick from a couple months ago, because it's one of my favorite songs by him. So I was like, all right, she's got the good vibe, good taste in music too. So
I've been meaning to tell her that, like, my podcast partner / best friend here, Pat, is a big Rocky Erickson fan, and
Hell yeah. We got it.
I'm going to when I see her because she obviously must be a fan if she picked that song. I think that's pretty obscure.
It's such a great fucking song. Yeah, that documentary that we've mentioned a couple of times, we have to cover it one day because that's such a great introduction to him and his story. Which is, I mean, his music is amazing, but his personal life story is just
talk about somebody you got to see before they passed away too. That's pretty amazing.
And yeah, that was great. A couple times with the Empty Bottle. Man, he was showing his age, but he was definitely engaged with him because he was playing with a lot of like Okerville River is a band that he made an album with, an entire new album with them as his backing band, and so he just had a lot of good support. And I know his son played with him in the last couple tours. So, and also venues make a big deal if you get to see somebody at the Empty Bottle. It's a whole different experience than sitting a mile away at the United States.
Dude, I don't know if you saw that Chicago painting that I put together, and it had like all the different things I wrote about Chicago in there. Oh, yeah. It was since sold, which is amazing. But the Empty Bottle is on there, but somebody called me out online. He's like, "What? No Empty Bottle?" So I took a picture of it, and I was like, "Nope, it's on there." Like, people love that venue. It's it's a very Chicago venue.
I mean, the program is great. Yeah, love it. Any other thoughts? I just got one quick meme that I want to bring up. I saw a meme that pointed out, and you need to confirm this is true because I still didn't finish watching it, but it pointed out that Air, the movie with Ben Affleck, was using the music when they unveiled the shoe at the end. It's the same music from Body Double whenever he's looking at through the binoculars. It's kind of got that tingly music. Somebody pointed out, I was like, Air's good when they're using the music from Body Double.
Dude, I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it. I know it's like now that you say it, I can kind of think it's a super small
detail, but like I think we talked about both those movies on the same week actually, so that's why it was like such a revelation.
I think it was released on Amazon Prime, by the way, so you could probably watch it.
I'm gonna go check the music and watch the rest of the movie right now because that music is so fucking weird and great that they use when he's just watching the women, and it's got that kind of like almost tingly music.
Affleck is stealing from Tarantino, who basically steals all of the music from De Palma movies anyway. So
that's the lineage between us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wanted to tell you, Pat, if you haven't noticed, on our YouTube channel, people have been commenting on stuff, especially somebody I don't really know, but had some great, important, I thought, points that had to do with like what's the lead character? I forget now for some reason. The lead character in Drag Me to Hell's name.
Alison Lohman?
Yeah. Alison Lohman's character. They're talking about how she's actually the real evil person in that, and it's really good, like really good stuff. So take a look at the comment section of the video. I feel like I've
heard that pointed out. The last time we watched it certainly wasn't like on the front of my mind, but I feel
I don't think we covered
something.
It that
no, I feel like that is something I've heard where there's a whole way to watch that movie where she's a mortgage lender working for a giant bank. So that's not that hard. I could see how that is the beginning of the through line for that character.
Well, so. I mean, there was some of the points that this person was making was about like she didn't need to kill the fucking cat, but like she did. And so anyway, check out the comments and
that's great. This is what we fucking love. This is why we have a podcast recreating the video story, because we could be talking about this all day. So anybody feel free to comment, because we'll definitely love to engage with that. So
totally. And then we'll see you back here next time for another film to open my eyes to what I've been missing all along. Thanks, Pat, for giving us this great recommendation today. If you have not seen this film, definitely recommended. In the words of our favorite critics, 2 thumbs up from both Pat and myself.